Hello and welcome to Finch Restorations and their second episode in our series all about classic and vintage cars, bikes, their projects and their owners. Coming up first tonight is our story about Max and his Aston Martin 78 Oscar India. So sit back and enjoy that, and afterwards join me, Jay Devison, and our panel of experts who will share experiences and advice on restorations, motorsport, history and today's motoring scene.
My name is Max Anderson. I'm driving a 1979 Aston Martin V8 Oscar India. For the last 5 years I've been wanting to put driving lights into the front of this vehicle. I think they make the car look a lot more brutish. At first I thought that it was a simple job of just bolting a couple of lamps onto the bumper bar, but like anything Aston Martin, it's a lot more involved than that. It needed some components welding and it needed 2 holes cut into the radiator grille. So ultimately I wanted to trust the vehicle to a safe pair of hands, which is why I came to Finch. It should come as no surprise that I fell in love with Aston Martins when I was a kid watching a movie called Goldfinger. There was nothing not to love about a suave secret agent who had an ejector seat in his car. However, by the time I could actually even think about buying an Aston, there was no way I could afford a 5. So I did the next best thing and I actually bought a DB6 Mark II. However, it was, I think the polite term would be, it was scruffy. It needed a $250,000 restoration. So I ended up selling it for double what I paid. And with the money that I made, I was able to get this handsome beast here. The car is a tourer. It was actually, it was Britain's first muscle car, which I think is one of the most fascinating aspects of it. It's a beautiful, sedate drive, but it has a big chunk of 5.3 litre alloy engine under the bonnet, which is capable of giving it an enormous boost. I've heard this vehicle being described as a battleship with a rocket strapped to it, which I think is probably the most apt description.
Brace yourself.
Funnily enough, I always wanted a James Bond car, I suppose. In 2020, I find out that this vehicle is going to be in the new James Bond movie, which is No Time to Die. Apparently Daniel Craig dusts off the old Timothy Dalton Oscar India and she goes out for another run. Well, this is what we've been told. I'm not sure whether it's still got skis in the vehicle and lasers in the hubs, but I end up with a vehicle that was in the original James Bond film. So.
Morning, Q.
Oh, morning, Governor.
Mind your head.
I've got something for you. We're just winterizing this.
Welcome back. We hope you like the stories, especially about Max and his Aston Martin. You'll note that those headlights that we've fitted to them look fantastic. So whether you're into high-end Concours restorations, resto modding, your classic daily drive, doesn't really matter what it is. Join us each fortnight for a look into the world of vintage and classic motoring. Joining me tonight on the panel are members of the Finch team with a range of experiences which include motorsport, restorations and project management. I'll ask them to introduce themselves, starting with Peter.
Hello, I'm Peter Roberts. With my wife, we're the owners of Finch Restorations. I'm actually an engineer with 40 years of experience in complex shipbuilding projects, and I have professional qualifications in engineering and project management.
Hi, I'm Shane. At Finch I mostly do technical development and fault finding. I've been a motor mechanic for 20 years and I'm quite interested in land speed racing.
Hi, I'm Tim. I'm the workshop manager. My experience comes from being a qualified mechanic, owning and running mechanical and panel shops, and also involved with motor racing as well.
Hi, my name is Molly. I'm one of the project managers here at Finch. I have experience in racing, particularly rally cars, driving and building.
That's great. So that's our team. Tonight, now remember we are live, so get your questions in now. Please send us questions. Doesn't matter what it is, assuming it's about motoring, motorsport, whatever it is about cars, send us in. We like to start off our episodes with a question of our own, which addresses many of the issues that are most commonly asked by visitors to Finch. And the question that really, I think from last week we talked about how much. This episode we're going to talk about how long it takes to restore a car. So, who's going to start off? How long does it take to restore a car?
How long's a piece of string?
Yeah.
It's a lot of different questions around that. What's your budget? How quickly can you pay for the restoration project? How extensive is the restoration project? You know, as Molly touched on last time, we do some quite small sections of perhaps just mechanical or just bodywork. We can do the whole lot as well, and it can be quite a cost. So that might be spread over 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years, depending on your budget and on what actually needs doing to the vehicle.
What if we, I might just interrupt, what if we go from the point of view, let's assume that it's a perfect world, money's not an issue, how long is it going to take, and the car needs a full restoration. Maybe we'll pick on the Falcon that we've got in. It needs everything done. So let's assume it's that, the rust is sort of 30% bad and needs everything done. How long is that going to take?
Usually
Budget's no issue.
that sort of project, it's within the 1 to 2 year range. Depending, it also then comes back to what the vehicle actually is and how available parts are, because sourcing, researching, tracking down suppliers, that can also lead to delays. We do try and preemptively order things so that they don't hold us up. But for example, we have a Dodge at the moment. There are just no grills available for it. The owner's actually been involved in sourcing. No, that's actually the 38 Dodge Ute.
Oh. Hey, the Studebaker behind us took 2 years to find just the hubs for that car.
Yeah. So yeah, we try and do the part sourcing preemptively before we're going to need it. But yeah, I mean, I'd say kind of the 1 to 2 year range for a full.
I'd like to add in too that we have experienced over this year, 2020, that supplies, particularly from the Northern Hemisphere, have been very slow. That's had an impact even on warehouses in Australia, but you know, the UK, USA are very heavily impacted by COVID, and just going through the forwarding agents can take a long time. There aren't the people that are able to fulfil the orders and the suppliers and everything. So what might have been a 3 or 4 week process in the past is probably now 3 months these days.
It is starting to speed up though, which is good.
It is funny how it goes. I mean, something like the Morgan behind us here, we're able to buy a brand new chassis directly from Morgan for that car, or new timber components, whereas something as common as an Escort panel van happened to have one little curve on the front guard that was different than every other Escort around. Took months to get
track down
to get the perfect
some old stock parts.
I think we brought in a couple of parts before, but because of our contacts, we're able to slip around and make everything fit and work properly. Okay, so
I'd like to also talk about the hours as well. I would say that the typical projects we see through here typically range from a 300-hour project up to, say, 3,000 hours. It's quite a broad spread. I would judge that we would probably, typically 100 to 150 hours per month would be a typical rate that we would progress a project. So if it's
so that's looking at that sort of Australian sedan, that 70 sedan range that's not overly complicated. Things are readily available and readily available here as well.
Yes. I think you may have a question.
We've actually got a couple of pages that have come in. We've now got 3 questions. The first one, look, I think the issue of how long it takes is an interesting one, and I'm sure that if you're watching at home, send in any questions you have about the time, and if you're interested, we'll go back over that on our next episode as well and talk more about it. But for now, we have a message from David Clifton. What has been your most satisfying restoration? I think the answer to that is probably very easily one for every person here. Shane, you've been here probably as long as, or a bit about the same as Peter. So maybe you should start.
The SS120 concept we did finished off last year. You know, it was a complicated build in a lot of ways, and you know, it had some issues to overcome, and in the end, it just turned into a car that drove amazing.
I didn't know it was beautiful to drive.
It looked beautiful.
Yep.
You know, it all just comes together. And
Perhaps you should describe what the actual car was, because anyone who knows about Jaguars is going to be a bit confused by the nomenclature SS120. Is it an SS100 or is it an XK120?
it's probably Peter's best to take.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we came up with our own bespoke design where we did a what-if scenario. What would have occurred if Jaguar's production of SS100s, in fact they were actually Swallow sidecars at the time, what if their production hadn't been delayed or held up by the Second World War? So we looked at the evolution of what occurred before the war, what happened after the war. We noticed that the XK120 came out directly after the war. They were developing the new engine, so we opined that that engine would be the solution for us. But they were also obviously evolving the Mark IVs, or the saloons beforehand, which became the nickname Mark IVs. Then they evolved into the Mark Vs. So the Mark Vs were really the basis for the shortened and made narrower for the XK120 chassis. So we adopted the same sort of approach, but we really wanted to have a 1930s style for the vehicle, or perhaps
So it ended up as a romantic interpretation of what could have been.
correct.
Yeah,
And
an alternative universe.
A lot of great reception the vehicle got too. We had a launch here. We had several hundred people here for the launch of that vehicle. The client's in Queensland now, and that's where the vehicle is, so we can't show you, but it's a great project and went really well. Let's get back to David's question. Tim, what's been your favourite project?
Almost satisfying.
Most satisfying. Look, I think it's going to be the Morgan. It's a beautiful car. It's a V8.
Yes.
It sounds incredible. There's
Yeah.
just something about the rumble of a V8 that,
Yep.
you know, there's a nerve centre that grabs that. We're just coming to the pointy end of it now. It's got lots of little niggling things as you come to the end of a project. There's all this big long list of 5-minute jobs that end up taking 5 hours each.
Well, it's the debugging process,
exactly,
isn't it?
just to make sure it's
and,
right.
And everyone who restores a car knows that.
Exactly, yeah.
You finish a car, you think that's fantastic, and you think
you go for driving
I
it.
did exactly the right thing with the gearbox, and then it doesn't select first properly or something. But we are, of course, professionals here. We don't have that issue.
Never happens to us. No, that's
I have to say, I reckon the Morgan is my favourite as well. It is just off to the right. If you're looking at home, you'll see the nose just poking out over that side there. It's a beautiful car. Now,
To be honest, it's not actually mine. Normally would be my type of vehicle, but I just love it. You know,
well,
it looks
it's a
beautiful, it sounds
lightweight,
beautiful.
sexy car that's got, and only 19 were built of that super lightweight V8 version. This has gone from the 3.5 litre V8 super lightweight to now 4.9 litre.
4.9.
And with fuel injection, and it is probably going to put out, we're guessing sort of 400 plus horsepower,
It'll be around that mark.
high threes.
But it's very, Michael says it's very touchy to drive on the road. You've got to be very
Yeah.
careful with the throttle.
Yeah.
It's a very light vehicle
Yeah.
with very big brakes. And
Incredibly light vehicle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right,
It
so Molly,
sounds amazing as well. Just
your
on that,
most,
Morgan.
sorry,
No,
Yeah.
all good.
your most satisfying restoration.
Probably at the moment the 38 Dodge Ute that I mentioned before, because that one was actually, it was basically found in a paddock, and the owners wanting to keep it original patina, but do the mechanicals, and we weren't sure with the body. It's had a hard life. There wasn't a lot left, but we've really brought it back to life, and it's so nice to see
Yes.
it not continuing to rust away in a paddock. So it's just saving
Yeah.
something, and you know.
It has great structure now. It's
It doesn't
solid
wobble
car.
in
the
the
quarter
wind anymore.
panels don't go
Yes.
like this anymore.
No, they were flapping in the breeze on
Yeah.
the way here, and that was a story that could have ended with the vehicle being scrapped
Close.
because
yeah.
it was bought on, as you say, it was bought with the idea that it was in better condition, and then when it arrived, we
Let's just
talked to the
clarify this a
client.
bit. This is not a full restoration, is it?
No.
This is sort of, perhaps
It's
for want of a better term, a rat rod.
Well-
the body won't have a lot of work on it, but the driver will be new and very reliable. It'll still look really cool.
We'd
and old.
probably say preservation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
It's
wouldn't
a
go rat rod,
preservation.
it's-
Rat rod is normally upgrading mechanicals and leaving it looking unfinished and rough. But this is preservation of something that, and we're preserving the history.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
It looks like it's come off the farm.
Having such a committed client who just really loves the vehicle and is, prepared to put the effort into to keeping the thing alive is.
Yeah.
It's fun to have something a bit different around as well. So I enjoy working with that one.
Well, actually, that's a really good segue into another question we've got here, and I will find it in just one moment. We've actually got quite a lot of questions, so thank you everyone for writing in. Please send in more. Don't forget we are live, so send in your questions. We have time, and we may even push a little bit beyond. Our last episode, we had a lot of response and a lot of questions. So depending on how we go, we may go over time and answer the more questions for you.
Maybe this one?
No, it's the one about Resto modding. Okay, so the question was, and I'm sorry I don't have it written down, but I know the question referred to Resto modding and what it means, and can you Resto mod my 48 Ford Mercury. 48 Ford Mercury is a great car because it was the lead sled that was used, and I can't remember the name they gave the car in the film, but it's quite a famous model. But look, Resto modding...
Don't they blow it up in the very last scene?
Oh,
I don't like that.
Let's not talk about that now. But so Resto modding, 48 sedan, American sedans, four-door sedans are big and plentiful at the moment. The prices are very reasonable. Taking that car and Resto modding, upgrading the brakes, putting in some air conditioning, and looking at
fuel
some other
injection,
safety.
maybe.
Great things.
The mod cons.
But it's not turning into a hot rod, is it?
No.
It's taking essentially the original bones. And Shane, what would you do to a 48 Mercury?
Power brakes, power steering, possibly even look at electric power steering now. We're starting.
That's the way to go now, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, we're starting to put that into a few Jaguars and things like that, and it really preserves the original car quite well with giving it that nice drive feel.
And pickups, putting in pickups as well.
Pickups, yep, anything you like, we can put it in really. And some of the carburetor replacement fuel injection systems around now, if it's a car that you want to, either drive regularly every day or something that you want to be able to leave for 3 months and turn the key and drive away, you don't need to make any real changes to the car itself.
It's not hard to start when it's cold, it drives beautifully, no flat spots.
Yeah, it keeps you up in modern traffic. And
there's no real tuning, it tunes itself, these things,
Yeah, it makes it very economical.
Our faithful assistant, thank you faithful assistant, has just handed me Kevin's question, so thank you. About the 48 Ford sedan. Kevin, thanks for the question, that's great. So he's asked specifically, can you fit air conditioning and upgrade the brakes? I think you've just answered that.
Yeah,
yes,
absolutely.
Air conditioning is a no-brainer for most of us. We're getting a bit soft in our new age, old age, whatever.
One of us is.
Everybody likes
One of us is.
The creature comforts,
I must admit I am too. I'm fitting air conditioning to one of my cars at the moment. So Kevin, thank you very much. What a great question. Again, that is something that we could expand a lot on, and I think we might actually in future episodes dedicate an episode to the concept of Resto modding. If you'd like to see that, drop us a line, let us know, tell us what you'd like to see.
Or drop us off a Ford Mercury.
48, or otherwise. Okay, so David, we've spoken about your question. Kevin, thank you. We have a few more here already. I'm going to go to Mark McElrath. Have you done any restoration on cars from overseas? I'm going to let Peter ask them that one.
Yes, we've done restorations on Japanese, Italian, French, English, US, Spanish,
Australian
Swiss.
guy that lived overseas.
Yeah.
Ian's Falcon that lived overseas.
Yes.
Yes, we have a customer at the moment. He's an expat living in East Timor.
Well, he's come back now because of COVID.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, but he's been stuck in Victoria.
Yes, so that.
So I think we've got both aspects of the question. Have we done vehicles that come from overseas, and have we done vehicles that were manufactured overseas?
And there's also been a lot of restorations that have gone overseas. The Panhard Lavassa went to I've forgotten where that is. It's certainly overseas. I went to the USA. It's owned by a US Navy Admiral. He owns that one. Hispano Suiza that won at Pebble
One at
Beach.
Pebble Beach. There's a class-winning Pebble Beach entrant, the Hispano Suiza.
Yeah, I think that may have actually moved to the Netherlands.
Okay.
I've lost
So,
track of
so that vehicle, and I suppose if we get around to Mark's question and we explore that a bit more, it probably, we're talking about, what's the cost effectiveness of someone from the Netherlands or someone from America or someone from Hong Kong or Singapore? Singapore and Hong Kong both have very prodigious classic car movements. What is the point of sending it here? Is there any advantage? And I think there is a big advantage. Our dollar is good at the moment against those countries. We have great skills and expertise here. What else? What else makes it worthwhile sending a car from overseas to us?
Well, in these uncertain times, we're one of the most stable countries in the world.
I also think, perhaps for us, not just us, but us in particular, quality. We had a combi van that had been done in Bali and got brought over, and the customer wanted to get it registered in South Australia, but the engineer shook his head and said, no, I can't do this. So they bought it here, and it was been a pretty average, below average job, really, wasn't it, Shane?
Yeah, and we had that. We had a Bentley that came in from the Netherlands, I believe.
Yes, that's right. That was purchased by one of our clients. That was the S1 Bentley, the 4.5 litre.
And look, it was a lovely car, but it certainly wasn't done to the standard that we'd aspire to.
Right. And mechanically, it needed a lot of work done as well, and you don't know that from not being right on the pulse.
Okay, so I think, Mark, thank you. That's an interesting question. So I think the answer is we'll take classic cars from anywhere around the world. We are restoring them. It doesn't matter where it's from. We have a good situation with the Australian dollar at the moment. It makes economic sense, and we can do the job for you. In fact, we're talking to a client in Florida at the moment, and you'll probably be even watching this on a rerun at some stage. No names, no descriptions, but hello, you know who you are. So that's going to be an interesting project. We're going to build the vehicle here, and that's going to go back to the States. Our next question comes from Mike. Now, Mike has said, will you do a mock-up from HZ sedan to GTS, e.g. body and paint? Mock-up, I suspect he has a standard HZ Kingswood or Bel Air, and he wants us to do a conversion. And it sounds like it's... well, let's talk about body and paint. Will we do it? Yeah, we'll do it.
Absolutely. Look, we're not here to say you can't make a mock-up. There's plenty out there, and very good examples as well. We obviously wouldn't like people to sell it as the real thing, but we're quite happy to build you what looks like the real thing, and everyone knows it's a mock-up.
Yes, we'll do replicas, not fakes.
Yeah.
If that's your dream, you've always wanted one, there isn't one available.
And you can't afford what some of these things are worth now.
Yeah.
Well, I think what's a HZ GTS sedan worth these days? Original one. You'll be talking 160?
I wouldn't think quite that high, but pushing 100, I reckon.
Depends on the car.
There'll be many of you out there who knows what the genuine is. Send us in some information about what you think it's worth. That'd be great to just get your feedback. But the way that the society of car culture is at the moment, very hard to pull the wool over people's eyes. Where everybody knows everybody, and there's a lot of the registration of interest in these cars. Nobody's going to be faking it and getting away with it these days.
So much documented history now as well, and so easily available, so yeah.
And the law's coming down. Just recently there's been that case where somebody's been caught doing it quite a few years ago, and got in a lot of trouble.
Yes. And I hope they're haven't caught up with you then?
Not yet, not yet.
All right, so Mike, thanks very much. Body paint, yes, we can do that. If you want to do the mechanical conversion as well, we can do that. And I believe that there are a lot of reproduction GTS badges and all the associated parts available that we can find. Okay, so anything else on Mike's GTS upgrade lookalike?
Have you thought about a Ford, Mike?
Yeah, guess who the Ford fan is? You just stick to your guns. Okay, now Paul. Paul, we don't know where you're from. Tell us where you're from when you call in when you send in your questions. Let us know what state or what town you're from. We'd be interested to see how far afield your questions are coming from. So Paul has asked if we restored any BMW E9s in the past.
Not in my time, but I haven't been here overly long.
I think we did have one in at one stage.
2.
Yep.
We've
There
had
you go.
now I could be getting my BMW numbers mixed up, but we had a late 70s, early 80s blue E9, and
Yes,
that
we did,
was the owner of, and I'm going to do a free plug. I'm going to do a free plug for Lever Pianos. It was the owner of Lever Pianos in Adelaide who restores pianos like we restore classic
Not
cars.
free, he'll be sending you the bill.
Well, yeah, actually, we want our piano tuned. We have to get one. So we did some work on his car, and he moved that on. Now, what was the one that was brought in from overseas?
That was a M5,
E36 later, UK import
The one
Yeah.
with the floor.
Yes.
which we ended up finding a lot of rust
Yeah.
in, which
Yes.
in the countries that have snow and a lot of salt on the roads can be a real issue and a bit of a risk importing.
That was a
in the
sad
seams,
story.
wasn't it? The rust was in the seams. So
Yeah.
that one we didn't restore. It was
It was beyond.
beyond economical repair.
It was within our Finch's ability to do that job, but as you say, it was beyond economic and
For the
reasonable
customer.
repair.
Yeah.
And we will talk to a client about the realisation of dreams as opposed to the overwhelming burden of
Yeah,
getting it right.
we've had quite a few times over the years. Where it's actually a bit of counselling that that we have recommended to customers that brought vehicles to us that we really don't think you should do it. It's
Yes.
we'd recommend against it because it could be that the vehicle's in too bad a repair. But we have also turned a few projects around which have been in bad repair. We've actually sourced donor bodies to help the project along.
It's
there's
not all about
some
dollars and
solutions.
cents, is it? You'd be silly coming into this industry or starting a project without considering it's not about dollars and cents, it's about emotional value and bucket list and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I'd like to categorise that. If it's an heirloom, if it's grandfather's car, it's a totally different proposition.
Yeah.
But if it's a collective per se, it's a different proposition again. But so if it's an emotional connection, it represents a
Totally different thought
long-standing.
process.
The money's not the issue.
There's a lot to it. Now, this is a hairy one.
That's for you,
Zane
Tim.
Admiral has sent in. Does that name ring a bell?
It does.
Okay, all right.
What have we got?
So we have a question. Very simple, very straightforward. There may be compensation requested after this one. Renault Alpine or Lancia 037?
Lancia?
Well,
The Alpine,
Really?
surely.
Yeah, no, I'd be Lancia.
Would you?
Yeah, 037 Lancia for sure.
I reckon. I mean,
Why?
personal preference, but
but you're talking about two cars that are both majorly successful and makers who are majorly successful rally champions. They build this stuff.
Zane is probably still the current South Australian rally champion. He obviously want to go back to a classic, not his Subaru.
yeah. Maybe.
Wow.
Well,
It's time to build a classic.
Look,
Zane, could you handle a two-wheel drive?
That's a great question, because this is the sort of question I think we'd like to talk about, because it's not just restoration. Everyone here except, I think, Peter has been involved in motorsport. We've all participated. Molly's currently. Tim's still doing some racing, and Shane is about to, as
some
long
more
as they get COVID sorted out and we can go back to the sand drags. There's some great...
Salt Lake.
Salt Lake. I
Salt
always
Lake.
get those
Big
mixed
difference,
up. So Molly's doing the sand. No, that's all right. So
And you're just swearing drag.
So do we have a result? Is it the Renault or the Lancia?
I vote Lancia.
Renault, Lancia.
Lancia.
yeah,
Peter, do you have a
I'd be
preference?
the Lancia, because the
Well, then,
Lancia, the
I've lost
Lancia
again.
Fulvia,
You're ganging up
there's
on me.
so many great cars.
Just
Yeah,
so
but you
classic.
like Nissans and Fords.
Yeah.
Hey,
And so do a lot of
Datsuns.
people, and we all do. But so, more questions, please. We are live. Don't forget, we're running out of time, but I think we're
Squeeze in
another
a few more.
question. Okay. Okay, Dave. Thank you, Dave. I think that's about the last one. So please send in more questions, though. We will get to them. Either we'll give you a call through the week, call us, or send an email. But we'll just get Dave's question. Are you planning to create any more projects that could have been like the Jaguar SS120?
That's an interesting question for Peter.
Do you want to?
I think it's Molly's.
We are actually in the process of starting our second round of development for our next SS. Well, we're nicknaming it the SS12012 at the moment. So, you know,
Why is it
any
12,
guesses
Molly?
about the 12? Maybe.
Yeah, tell us why it's a 12.
Okay, so basically the donor for this one, I suppose you could call it, is an XJ12, hence the 12. So basically it's going to be, Shane, do you want to go into the mechanicals of it? Because you're literally doing it at the moment.
Yeah, so
I mean, I can list off the
steering,
parts,
suspension,
but-
brakes and drivetrain are all based on a later model Daimler 1212.
66.
66, yeah. So I think, you know, we're still sort of spitballing in the exact concept of this car, but I'm likening it to if they'd made an XJ12 in the 50s or 40s. I think that's what we're going to end up with.
Yeah,
We're looking at the car is having that 30s Euro French style. It's having that very much an influence of the Fagonia Fallaci. Beautiful aero styling that was just so evocative and so powerful in its design. And we're using a Donor Mark V Jaguar chassis with, as Shane said, with the latest suspension. So it's going to handle.
Yeah.
And it's going to propel itself down the road at blistering speed.
Oh, yes.
I still think we should supercharge the V12 because
No.
I do like supercharging, but I will argue that.
No, please no. No more complications.
Okay. All right. Hello, we've got one more.
Are we squeezing it in?
Look, we're 4 minutes over, and that's wonderful. We're going to ask you another question because the tennis isn't on afterwards. We don't care.
Is anybody actually watching?
Yeah, we can talk about it anyway.
I can tell you that we have. We've got Mark, we've got Kevin, David, Paul, Mike, Zane,
And my
Carl,
dad.
Dave, your dad, Rob. We haven't got to Rob's question or Seb's question, but we'll ask Carl's, and this may be the last one. So Carl Schubert from Bendigo. What basic safety measures should I take when spraying 2-pack? Ugh.
Who wants to?
They should bring the car to us and we'll do it safely.
That's right.
Look, it's
That's
it's
a
poisonous. So really, you shouldn't be doing it at home without a proper booth. You need to have filtration. Two things. First of all is what you're breathing in. The isocyanates, very dangerous. Literally can kill you. They don't just get in through your airways, but they can get in through your eyes as well.
And your unprotected skin too.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Something often forgotten.
But also, it's the neighbours, because you've got the fumes going outside the shed, going to the neighbours, overspray on the neighbours' new BMW is not a great look.
Or into the lungs of their kids.
Or into the lungs of the kids or anybody. So you really have to have the right equipment at home to be able to do 2-pack. Acrylic, much less risk, but it's an older type of paint and a lot more work polishing, etc. In general, I would not recommend it unless you have all the booth and safety equipment, air wash hoods, etc.
And I think a very important part is that there will be restrictions by your council on what you can do, and I suspect that will be in contravention of council bylaws. Long gone are the days where you could use some acrylic paint, paint it in the driveway, sand out the bugs and give it a polish and everything would be
By the
fine.
time the council find out, you've probably done it, but the kids next door will be coughing for weeks.
Yeah, and of course we don't advocate working against the council regulations either.
As an 18-year-old, I painted my XB Coupe in my parents' driveway, and for 40 years afterwards I got held from them because of the overspray on the house.
Well, you know, I actually painted an engine
It's
bay
acrylic.
with enamel without a mask on back in my 20s, and for 3 days I was sick afterwards, and
Yep.
that's not what they say is a poisonous paint.
Yes, that's the lead contact.
Yeah.
Now, Molly, you've been trying to squeeze in there
I was
something
going to
there?
say on a slightly better note, if you are going to do it as well, if you put in all the prep, because you know what the prep is like, if you're going
That's
to
all
do
the
that,
time, isn't
yeah,
it?
basically, if you're going to do
Yes.
it, just people rent out booths. spray booths, just rent out a
Great
booth
idea,
and do
Molly.
it in a
Yeah,
booth.
absolutely.
You'll get
Yeah.
so, like, the end product will be so much better, and then you don't have to worry about all of these other, you know, killing your neighbours and ruining the house
Yeah.
and all the
Yeah.
other
And
issues.
getting your wife grumpy because of white
Yeah.
washing's all now black dots. over
That's
it.
great. Okay, well, that is all we have time for. So if your question wasn't answered tonight, send it through, go to our website, check the email address, find the phone number, send us a message, give us a call, and we'll address your questions anytime through the week. So join us next time as we show more stories, and don't forget to send in your questions. Remember to subscribe and share the link with your friends, and we hope you've enjoyed the night nearly as much as we have. So until next time, good night.
Good night.
Good night.